With the prospects of plumbing professionals increasing along with the number of new recruits in the industry, it goes without saying that mistakes are plentiful. But luckily for you, the most common of mistakes can be solved in a few simple steps. So feel free to join us as we explore this topic further. You might just learn something. The mismatching of threaded fittings. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that plumbers are our last defense against errors in and failures of already installed water systems. They are the front line that do their best to ensure that households and businesses don't go without running water, which has become a necessity in everyday life. That being said, it's not just water repairs and installations that plumbers are often called out for. Every so often, there's a request that comes straight out of left field. And more often than not, it has something to do with gas installations. Now, don't get us wrong, plumbers are trained in the subtle art of installing everything from new eco-friendly toilets to gas-powered dryers. As such, they are the professionals to call when a problem like this arises. But these problems are so few and far between that plumbers can go their entire lives without being called out to repair one. So you can imagine how some professionals in the industry could feel a bit out of place when faced with the installation of a new gas system or component. And this is what brings us to one of the top plumbing mistakes made on the job. We are, of course, referring to the mismatching of iron pipe threads and flare compression threads, which look incredibly similar and result in a number of problems down the line. Iron pipe threads are wedge-shaped and tapered and should always be joined up with another thread of the same nature so that an airtight connection can be made. It goes without saying, but if threads are mismatched, you won't be making an airtight connection, allowing for gas to leak while the new system or component is running. There are a number of dangers connected to gas leaks, ranging from house fires to eventual death, so it isn't exactly something you should be playing around with. In other words, when working on a gas system, you always have to follow the number one rule, which is ensuring that all threaded connections match and fit it together in an airtight manner. If you're worried that your focus on the job could be a problem though, go ahead and buy yourself a gas connector kit. These kits come with some specialty fittings that are useful in making gas-tight connections, regardless of how experienced you really are at taking care of these problems. Forgetting about the primer. Since residential plumbing is all about taking care of as many jobs in a day as possible, many professionals find themselves skipping vital steps, essentially leading to them being called back by unhappy customers. A great example of a top mistake made as a result of the rush is plumbers forgetting to prime the PVC pipes and fittings that they have installed before actually gluing those pieces together. And as it turns out, this is a vital step in the process. Remember, primer does a great deal of good in ensuring that piping and fittings mesh together well. The primer has the job of stripping away the solvents and dirt that can often be found on PVC piping because of usual wear and tear. Applying the primer also strips down the outer layer of the glossy plastic, which evidently results in the softening of the pipe. In other words, the primer step is important for actually preparing the piping to be joined, allowing for a watertight seal to be created when the piping is eventually fitted together. Funny enough, the mistake of forgetting all about the primer is actually similar in consequence to the previous mistake we just discussed. You see, the harder piping is and the more dirt that can be found on its surface before fitting, the less likely that a watertight seal will be made when fitting the piping together. This means that the skipping of the primer stage will eventually lead to the leaking of a pipe, and if this leak goes unnoticed for a while, it can build up to a burst pipe and flood, resulting in your company being sued by the homeowner for quite a bit of money. And since all of this can be avoided by just focusing and doing your job, it makes sense that you shouldn't be rushing through the jobs that are in front of you. There's another method you can employ to ensure that both time and money is saved while prepping a pipe to be joined though. Just go out and buy yourself something similar to Gorilla PVC, which is a product that both primes and glues PVC piping together in just one step. That way you'll be able to skip the primer step while still ensuring a watertight seal. If you're a commercial plumber using this product for a job you require a building permit for though, be sure to check in with the town's plumbing inspector first, as some regulations forbid its use. Forgetting to backhold. Another mistake that can be avoided by not rushing through your work involves the tightening of hex fittings, which always require the use of two wrenches in conjunction with one another. Remember, the best way to tighten a hex fitting perfectly is to place one wrench on the nearest fitting and another on the farthest. This way you can backhold the one fitting while tightening the other. Some professionals on the job either forget or refuse to do this though, resulting in the over-tightening of one fitting and under-tightening of the other. In other words, rushing through the job and forgetting this vital step once more can result in a seal that is far from watertight, which has a number of consequences that we have already mentioned. This isn't difficult to avoid though. Just hold the fitting with a straight pipe wrench that is able to clasp onto it while you turn the other with another. You could also choose to go for a V-jaw tongue and groove plier to do either job, which in our opinion is cheaper but a bit more difficult to use at the end of the day. Either way, ensure that you're back holding these fittings when repairing or installing a new pipe, as otherwise you'll find yourself back on site with nothing but an unhappy client that is less likely to refer you to a friend. Not checking on tools. Any plumbing professional will tell you that the most skillful plumber in the world will still do a terrible job if he finds himself using the wrong tools. The same can be said about a plumber that uses the right tools but refuses or forgets to check on how they are coping with the strenuous tasks that they are being asked to complete. Remember, it's not just piping that experiences everyday wear and tear. Your tools will also experience this from time to time, which is why it's so important to buy proper tools for the job at hand. Inexpensive tools have a tendency to not last very long, and when tools become dull, then they have a tendency to complete jobs in a lackluster way. A great example of this is a tubing cutter that has been used for a solid couple of months. With overuse, it goes without saying that the wheel of the tubing cutter will become dull. This means that you'll be cutting tubing improperly, resulting in a joint which is far from perfect. And what happens when we have an imperfect joint? A leak in the plumbing system, of course, which we don't need to discuss again for the sake of brevity. In other words, a professional should always check the tools he is using to complete a job at hand. If you find that the wheel on your tubing cutter is dull, go on and replace it. Otherwise, you'll never be able to complete the tasks client asks of you. It's also important to note which tools can have a component replaced in an effort to retain their usability, and which tools need to be thrown away completely, but we'll leave that choice at your discretion. Heating the wrong component. Last but not least, another plumbing mistake that is fairly common in the industry has to do with the soldering of copper piping together. Interns have a tendency of heating the solder rather than the copper piping, as this is how soldering worked when first learned back in woodshop class. But when it comes to the soldering of copper piping together, this is not the case. Plumbers actually have to heat the copper piping until it's actually able to melt the inside of the solder with its own residual heat. This will result in the solder wicking into the joint, making a watertight seal. Heating the solder itself will indeed result in the solder melting, but there's no way that a watertight seal will be created as a result. In other words, make sure that you stay away from the direct heating of the solder and focus on the job at hand. And remember, if you're already a plumber running your own business or just about to start and grow with your own plumbing business, you must learn the 4 critical things plumbing business owners wish they had learned before starting a plumbing business so you don't make the same mistakes. Plumber Accelerator have put together a free training video you can watch right now that will show you exactly how to start, grow, and build your plumbing business the right way so you can consistently guarantee profitable work and free up your time, all whilst reducing stress levels and allowing you to have a sustainable and more profitable business that works for you. In this free training video, you'll also learn how to generate a steady stream of jobs on demand and with predictability month after month in your local area without relying on word-of-mouth referrals, how to stop competing on price with other plumbers and escape your competition, how to convert at least 90% of your quotes and estimates into sales, and how to command premium prices and attract high-quality customers that will be happy to pay more. Make sure to click the link in the description and let us know what you thought about our list of mistakes and how to fix them in the comments section down below.